Within the quiet depths of the human spirit lies a mystery that has baffled thinkers for centuries, the question of what it truly means to be authentic. What does it mean to be yourself in a world that constantly pushes you to blend in? Here's the truth. Most never say out loud. Many will live their entire lives without ever answering that. They wake up, wear the mask, follow the routine, and call it life. But beneath it all, there's a subtle restlessness. Not a crisis, just a deeper truth, buried. It's not that you lack power, it's that you were conditioned to mistrust it, taught to trade truth for approval, to stay quiet for comfort. But here's the reality. Your deepest power was never outside of you. It was always beneath the noise. The Stoics believed peace wasn't found in controlling the world, but in commanding your reaction to it. True power doesn't have to shout. It simply remains. Stoicism isn't emotional suppression, it's emotional stability. In an age where everything feels loud, forced and artificial, the person who walks with truth becomes an outlier, grounded, still, and strangely compelling. This video isn't about quick motivation or empty slogans. It's about remembering what the world tries to make you forget. You were never weak, just distracted. If this message touches something you've always felt but stopped believing, do one small thing: subscribe. Help us grow this movement, this space for those who are done hiding and ready to live with purpose, presence, and power. Ever find yourself moving through life, yet feeling like something's off, like you're busy but disconnected, functioning but not really living? Between responsibilities, expectations, and the noise, you start operating from the outside in. You become a reflection of pressure, not purpose. Let's slow that down, not just your schedule, your seeing. Because beneath the masks, the titles, the filters, is someone you might have forgotten. You, not the version you perform for others, but the version who exists in stillness. The you who doesn't need permission to be whole. The Stoics knew, he who conquers himself, conquers the world. That was Zeno, and it's still true. Strength doesn't start with muscle, it starts with honesty. You can't change what you refuse to face, and you can't face what you never acknowledge. Aristotle once said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom, but most never take the time. Why? Because silence is loud, because self-inquiry is uncomfortable. But that silence, it's the doorway to real power. The world will always try to define you. Your job wants output, your friends want familiarity, social media wants perfection, and every time you shapeshift without self-inquiry, you drift further from who you are. You become, as Jung said, a persona, a mask for the crowd. Jung warned that the more you cling to the mask, the further you fall from your essence. And without that essence, life becomes a performance. But you weren't born to perform. You were born to be awake, aware, aligned. It starts by turning inward. I know, distractions are everywhere, but power begins the moment you turn the volume down. Start small. 15 minutes, no screens, no noise, just a pen, a page, and presence. Ask yourself, what am I pretending not to feel? What have I silenced to belong? What would my life look like if I stopped apologizing for who I am? Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. Not a condemnation, a clarity. If you don't look inward, you'll spend your life chasing the wrong dream. But when you begin observing, not performing, things change. You notice what nourishes you. You spot the stories that drain you. I'm not enough. I have to earn love. People must approve of me for me to be safe. And when you see these stories, you rewrite them. That's awareness, not just healing, transformation. Plato said, the first and best victory is to conquer self. That's the real work. Because self-awareness isn't fluff, it's the foundation. It's what stops you from breaking your own heart. It's what builds a life that's actually yours. You know those moments that hit hard, a random comment, a familiar scenario that feels strangely repeated. It's not coincidence, it's reflection, it's your inner truth knocking. The part of you that feels too deep, too needy, too much. The part that still hurts, even if you've smiled over it for years. Carl Jung called this the shadow. It's not a metaphor, it's a real force, running quietly in the background. And if you don't face it, it starts to leak. In outbursts, in insecurity, in sabotage. The Stoics believed you must face all of yourself, not just the curated parts. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And that includes the parts you've been hiding. Avoidance doesn't eliminate darkness, it amplifies it. The more you resist, the more it festers. If you're triggered by rejection, it may not be about today. It may be an old wound you never looked at. If you feel unworthy, no matter how hard you try, maybe you're chasing external validation when what you need is internal truth. These patterns aren't random, they're rooted. And the moment you own that, you stop blaming and start becoming. And here's the shift. The shadow isn't your enemy, it's a guide. It's showing you where fear still lives. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Facing the shadow isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. Maybe you always feel overlooked, you give everything yet feel invisible. That's not a flaw, that's a clue. Ask, why do I need others to validate my existence? When did I learn my worth depends on recognition? Maybe the work isn't getting others to see you, but learning to see yourself fully, even in the quiet. Plato once said that the worst form of injustice is pretended justice. And there's a parallel in our inner lives, pretending you're okay, pretending you've moved on, pretending you're not still bleeding from a wound you never really looked at. That's a form of self-betrayal, because healing cannot exist without honesty. So where do you start? Small. Choose one emotion that keeps showing up. Jealousy, shame, fear, resentment. Don't fight it, don't judge it, sit with it, name it, ask it what it wants to teach you. That's not fragility, that's real courage. Most people run from their emotions their entire lives, but when you stay, when you listen, when you learn, you break the cycle. Socrates said, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." And that includes knowing your shadow, the unseen parts that drive your patterns. That's the difference between blind reaction and clear response, between projecting pain and processing it. This isn't about fixing what's broken. You're not broken. It's about coming home to yourself, reclaiming every part of who you are, including the ones you were told to hide. So the next time something triggers you, don't dismiss it, don't minimize it, don't gaslight yourself. Ask, what's really under this? What have I been ignoring? What truth have I been afraid to face? Because when you face your fears with honesty, they lose their power. You stop being a prisoner of your past and start becoming the architect of your future. And that's where strength begins, not in perfection, not in denial, but in radical self-awareness and the willingness to embrace even the parts of yourself you once feared. Ever notice how easily we trust outside sources, maps, metrics, guides? But when it comes to trusting ourselves, we stall, we doubt. We dismiss that quiet gut feeling as nonsense, but more often than not, that inner voice, it's right. We've been conditioned to believe that if you can't explain it, it isn't real. That logic always wins over feeling, but intuition isn't whimsy, it's wisdom, ancient, instinctual, rooted in lived experience. It's your inner compass, not one built for public approval, but one hardwired in your bones. The Stoics didn't use the word intuition, but they knew the power of inner knowing. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And true mastery includes recognizing when something feels off, even if you can't explain why. Jung called intuition a core psychological function, perception via the unconscious. It's how your deeper self sees what your conscious mind hasn't yet understood. It's not irrational, it's pre-rational. It's faster than thinking because it draws on thousands of subtle experiences stored beneath the surface. Remember the moment you felt someone wasn't being real, even if they smiled. The job that looked perfect but felt wrong. The relationship that should have worked, but your body said otherwise. That's intuition. Plato once said, "All learning has an emotional base." Your body knows, your emotions know, long before your mind can put it into words. But here's the catch. We live in a world that teaches us to mistrust that inner signal, to be polite rather than honest, to be accepted instead of aware. And every time you abandon that voice, you chisel away at your inner trust. You become skilled at people-pleasing, but clumsy at self-protecting. Socrates once said, "Know thyself," and that means knowing the whispers, the subtle shifts inside you, tightness in your chest, tension in a conversation, a pang of discomfort. These aren't random. They're signals. You always knew, you just didn't listen. Listening doesn't mean panicking. It means pausing, observing, asking, is this intuition or is this fear masquerading as wisdom? That space, that breath between feeling and reaction, that's where power lives. Aristotle said the wise aim not for pleasure but to avoid pain. And sometimes intuition doesn't show up as certainty. It shows up as resistance, a gentle pull, a tug in the wrong direction. So next time you feel it, don't drown it in logic. Don't dismiss it. Don't argue. Pause. Breathe. Listen. You don't have to justify your gut. You just have to respect it, because powerful people don't wait until things break. They adjust early. They walk away quietly. They trust themselves when the world is still convincing them not to. In a culture that worships noise and speed, trusting your gut is a form of spiritual rebellion. And once you start listening, you stop explaining your energy, you stop making deals with red flags, and you start moving through life with a quiet confidence that doesn't seek permission. That's real strength, not flashy but unbreakable. And the truth? You've had it the whole time. You just need to stop tuning out the whisper. Aristotle warned, the worst kind of inequality is forcing things that are not equal to be treated as if they are. And when you bind your internal worth to external validation, you're playing a game that was designed to drain you. People change, opinions shift, crowds cheer and then criticize. If your sense of self sways with their approval, you'll never stand still long enough to know who you are. But here's the shift. There's a version of you that's grounded, solid, who doesn't need to be liked to feel strong, who doesn't shrink to keep the peace. And once that version awakens, everything begins to change. Think of the strongest people you've ever met. Not the loudest, not the ones with titles or fame, but the ones who walk in a room and don't need to convince anyone of their worth. It's in the way they hold a boundary, the way they walk away from what doesn't align, the way their presence speaks louder than their voice. That kind of power isn't given, it's claimed. Marcus Aurelius once said, "We love ourselves more than other people, yet we care more about their opinions than our own." Wild, isn't it? We trade truth for approval, only to feel empty even after the claps. Applause is temporary. If you need it to feel whole, you'll forever be chasing a mirage. True power is quiet. It doesn't seek validation, it just is. So next time you feel the urge to apologize for taking up space, pause. Instead of shrinking, stand still. Instead of explaining, breathe. Let your presence speak for you, because your worth isn't up for vote. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, but you can't do that while shape-shifting for acceptance." Remember this, you don't need to dull your light to be included. You don't need permission to be proud of your growth, and you don't need likes to matter. Worth isn't a negotiation, It's a fact. It's hard to hold boundaries, especially for the ones who care deeply, who were taught to be nice, who mistake people-pleasing for peace. But the truth is, people will take what you give, not out of malice, but out of habit. And if you keep offering yourself without limit, you'll wake up feeling depleted. Boundaries aren't barriers, they're clarity. They decide what gets to stay and what doesn't, what feeds you and what drains you. Think of them like guardians of your inner world. The Stoics spoke to this through the lens of control. Epictetus said, "We cannot control external events, but we can control our responses." And sometimes the most powerful response is simply, "I don't allow this." Ever notice how exhausting it is to say yes when every cell in your body is screaming no? That's not just tiredness, that's soul fatigue. You pay for it in pieces of peace, and over time that cost compounds. But something shifts when you start saying no without shame, when you set a limit without a 10-minute explanation. People may push back, especially if they benefited from your lack of boundaries, but eventually they adjust, and more importantly, you do too. Aristotle said, "The more you know you don't know," and that applies to relationships. The wisest people know where they end and where others begin. Boundaries mark that line. Jung spoke of individuation, becoming whole, and that means taking back the parts of you gave away to be loved. Time, energy, silence, self-respect. Reclaim it. When you don't own your boundaries consciously, they show up as burnout, resentment, disconnection. So here's a challenge. Say no this week to something small or big, without guilt, without justifying. Feel the discomfort, and then feel what's left. You, clearer, stronger, grounded. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's strategy. You can't pour into others if you're constantly leaking. You can't lead a meaningful life if you're trapped in everyone else's expectations. Socrates said, "Be as you wish to seem." If you want to be strong, then start by respecting yourself first. Let them feel your no. Let them meet your limits. And most of all, let yourself feel what it's like to choose you. Socrates once said, "The soul is dyed the color of its thoughts." And when life breaks you open, when suffering hits, those thoughts get louder. That's when the choice appears. Will this break you or build you? Will you close your heart or open it wider than before? Try this. Reflect on a moment that brought you to your knees, a moment that shattered your assumptions. And ask yourself without blame, what did that pain teach me? How did it shape the way I move through this world now? Scars aren't here to hold you back. They're here to remind you that you survived, that you've been forged, not fragile, that you were molded into who you needed to become. Plato once wrote, "Pain restores order," and he was right. Struggle has a way of cutting through distraction, of pulling you back to what matters, so don't hide from your past. Don't bury your hurt. Let it speak. Let it form you, but never define you. Every wound carried a lesson. Every tear left you with a compass. That is your power, and it's already inside you. There's a kind of power that needs no introduction. It doesn't shout. It doesn't strut. It enters quietly, and still, the room feels it. This power doesn't need to be seen. It knows itself. It's the calm in the fire, the stillness in a storm, and it's built, not borrowed, forged in discipline, shaped through awareness, made strong by the choice to let ego step aside. The Stoics embodied this. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not from the thing itself, but from your judgment of it, and this you can change. You are the gatekeeper. You choose what gets in. You decide what disturbs your peace." Most people live in reaction. One insult ruins their day. One mistake sends them spiraling. They chase drama to feel alive. But that's not power. That's restlessness dressed up as intensity. When you no longer need to engage in every fight, when you can let go without losing your center, you become something else entirely. You become a walking sanctuary. And that peace, it draws people in, not because you're loud, but because you're real. Carl Jung said, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." Once you've walked through fire and stayed whole, you don't need to perform strength. You are strength. You don't deny your emotions. You direct them. You don't need to win every argument. You just don't need to fight. Think of the most grounded person you know. Their power isn't in their voice. It's in their presence. That's timeless strength. It's not flashy. It's unyielding because it's not fed by ego. It's fed by alignment. Socrates said, "He who is not content with what he has will not be content with what he wants." And that's where it all changes. When you're good inside, the outside doesn't shake you as much. You handle disappointment, rejection, silence without losing yourself. You stop chasing validation because you know who you are. So the next time you feel triggered, pause, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this my peace speaking or my pride? Because the strongest person isn't the one who takes over the room. It's the one who doesn't need to, the one who chooses restraint over reaction, who knows that not every fight is worth entering. That's real power, the kind that doesn't flinch, doesn't explain, doesn't need to be seen to be known. And here's the beauty of it. You don't have to chase power, just stop giving yours away. Everything you need to be grounded, clear, and unmovable. It's already within you. You weren't born to blend in. You were made to stand strong, to live authentic, to walk with a quiet, undeniable strength. And if this message spoke to something deep within you, there's another video waiting on screen to take you even further. Thank you for being part of this journey where we trade noise for clarity and chaos for character. Until next time, stay grounded, stay honest, and stay becoming.